Hello, good morning. I hope that everybody is well. It seems like ages since I sat down to make a video. Last weekend I was away. I was in London for several days. I had a wonderful time, but I came home completely exhausted. I'm not one for having much sleep, but the last couple of nights, oh my gosh, I have slept like a log. Okay, so what's been happening? Well, yesterday we announced the continuation of the Jane Fiddy's Stitch Along, and we revealed in detail the chosen sampler, which is Eliza Martha Linfoot, 1834, and this really is a stunning sampler. It's very different, just absolutely delightful. We've been so excited about this girl, and I think that you'll agree she's a very worthy follow-on to the beautiful Jane Fiddy's. Now, I've got lots to tell you about this sampler and the stitch along. So I printed it off so I could get everything right. The Jane Fiddy's Stitch Along will continue into the Eliza Martha Linfoot Stitch Along. So the Facebook group will remain exactly the same. So if you're a member of Jane Fiddy's, you are automatically a member of Eliza Martha Linfoot. And you know, if you didn't stitch Jane, you are so welcome to join in with this continuation stitch along. Now, Sherry, who was an amazing stitch along leader, has very kindly agreed to continue. So she will be leading the stitch along, and I'm sure that you'll agree she did a fabulous job with Jane. Her monthly videos were really good, and the stitch along group, it's very friendly. Everybody is very helpful. There's a mentorship scheme within the group, so you know, if you feel that you need some help, there is somebody there that will take you under their wing and you know, partner up with you throughout the stitch along. And I know that the mentors and mentees have built lifelong friendships in the last year. Now, the sponsoring stores of the Stitch Along is Hands Across the Sea Samplers, the Attic Needlework in Phoenix, Arizona. You have Needle in a Haystack, and Kathy is in California. Then you have Traditional Stitches in Canada, Janice, and we have a new store joining us as a sponsor, and that is A Stitch in Time in Tasmania, in the Southern Hemisphere. Now, the 4 stores are offering a special discount, and it's for a limited time. If you purchase all 3 components, so that's chart, fabric and threads, from one of the sponsoring stores, by the 31st of July, you will receive a 10% discount. Now, we are hoping to start shipping by August 31st. So all you will be doing at the moment is pre-ordering. If you go on to the Hands Across the Sea Samplers website to pre-order Eliza, you go through a slightly different procedure. You are not paying for her, and I'm just going to show a photo trail of how you pre-order on our website. On Eliza's webpage, click on Pre-order Now. Eliza has now been added to your shopping basket. Click on View Basket. You can see that Eliza has been added to my basket. I've checked my order and it is correct, so now I click on Proceed to Checkout. I now need to complete my billing and shipping information. At the bottom of the page where I complete my billing and shipping information, there is a click button labelled Place Pre-Order Now. Click on that button. Your screen will now show that your pre-order has been received. You will also receive an email confirming your pre-order has been received. You will next hear from us at the end of August when your pre-order is ready to send. We will make a request for payment at this time. August 31st, or rather the date that we actually ship the booklets, you will receive an invoice from HATS for your booklet. The other sponsoring stores will explain their procedure of how you pre-order from them if you so wish to do so. Now, we're hoping to have a start date of October 1st, but that will depend on availability of supplies. There's been a lot of work going on in the background for the last for some time, getting all these supplies organised. There will be a choice of different counts of linen offered, and Ada as well, for those of you who like to stitch on Ada. There will be a drawer at the end of the stitch along, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'd just like to sort of touch base about the sampler itself. Now, Eliza uses 21 different colours, and the model was stitched with Overa Soie's Soie 103. Within the booklet there is a conversion for Soie d'Alger and DMC. The stitch count is 249 stitches by 246 stitches, which is practically square, but the linen that we used was uneven, and that's why it came out rectangular as opposed to square. If you were stitching this sampler on 14 count Ada, 28 count linen, the design area is 17.79 by 17.57. If you were going to stitch it on 18 count Ada, which is 36 count linen, she will be 13.83 by 13.67. I've got a little audience coming in here. Now, I locked the gate. How did you two get through? Just excuse me a moment while I put them outside. Do you know how they get in? We have two staircases, and they've gone up the one staircase, along the landing, and down the other staircase. I tell you what, they're not stupid. Somehow the gate at the bottom of our staircase that we use all the time was open. I think Hugo has learned how to open it. So where were we? Okay, so just recap. 18 count Ada, 36 count linen. The design is 13.83 inches by 13.67. If you stitched the sampler on 46 count linen, it would be 10.83 by 10.7. The model was stitched on 56 count linen, but it came out at about 50, 56. It wasn't even. Now, I mentioned Ada. The original design is not suitable for stitching on Ada because we have this satin stitched basket with stem stitching to highlight the weave of the basket. And we have satin stitches in these flowers. So what I'm going to do, just like I did for the Jane Fiddy stitch along, I'm recharting that basket and the flower centres in cross stitch over 2, and that will be shared on Eliza's webpage on the Hands Across the Sea Samplers website once the stitch along starts, and it will also, the little charts will be released in the stitch along group as well. The stitches used is cross stitch over 2. There is no over 1 in this sampler at all. Satin stitch and stem stitch. So for those of you who are up to learning how to do stem stitch and satin stitch as well, Sherry will be demonstrating those in the monthly videos when we get to those sections of the stitch along. Sherry has divided up the sampler into monthly assignments, and you don't have to stitch the sampler in the order that Sherry is. You can do your own thing. With the Jane Fiddy stitch along, we had people starting at the top, the bottom, the middle. We had people that sat down and stitched the sampler very quickly. We've had people who have stitched the monthly assignments each month. We've had people who've joined midway. This stitch along is welcome to everybody, and for everybody to stitch the sampler at their own pace, in their own way. So I really hope that you're going to join us. This is a truly beautiful sampler. Now, I've already stitched half of this sampler, and there's a story behind this. I loved this sampler from the first moment I saw her, I wanted to stitch the sampler, and I started to stitch the sampler, and this in fact was the first sampler that I was going to stitch entirely in Soie 103. This started my love of Soie 103. But as I was stitching the sampler, I ran into a problem in as much as I couldn't get the exact shade of green that I wanted for part of this sampler. So I put it to one side, and I put with the model my threads, my notes, and my drawings of the sampler, and put it away, and forgot about it. There's always something else that comes along. Well, some time ago, the lady who bought the original sampler from me posted a photograph, and it generated so much interest that I started getting emails about, when was this sampler going to be available to stitch? I thought, oh gosh, that green I wanted is now available. Let's go and finish it. Well, I have searched and searched and searched, and I cannot find my partially stitched model and all my notes. So we had to start again with it. On my computer, I had a list of the threads, and obviously I had the graph that I had charted, but I hadn't charted 2 elements of the sampler. So what you see of this sampler is a true reproduction, but there are 2 motifs missing there, and those were 2 little freehand flowers. Now, how I chart my freehand is I sketch it, I stitch it, and as I stitch it, I chart it. So those 2 motifs were not charted, and of course my drawings have gone, so I can't do it. So this sampler is not a true reproduction. It's been inspired by the original, but what is in the chart is a reproduction. It's just missing 2 elements. But I actually thought that space, or these 2 spaces, would be great ones to put your initials and the date or the year that you stitched the sampler, or maybe family initials. I think, you know, sometimes things work out for reasons, and I just think that would be great to utilise that space. Anyway, I didn't stitch this model. Linda Clues stitched the model for me, because I'm living in hope that I will find my model. And in fact, in my drive to find this model a few weeks ago, I emptied out my sewing studio, which I could hardly get into. If I wanted to get into my studio, I literally had to go like this through piles of boxes of charts. It's got to be somewhere, but where, I do not know. Okay, so the stitch along will have a drawer at the end of it. Everybody who completes their sampler within the stitch along year, you will go into a drawer to win an antique sampler, and the sampler that is the prize is the beautiful Harriet Godhard. Isn't that a gorgeous sampler? Really, really lovely. Harriet has been charted and stitched and released, so that you can actually stitch this little sampler yourself, and somebody will have the original and the reproduction hanging side by side. So pretty. Really pleased with this little reproduction. Okay, so let's have a little chat about what we know about Eliza. So she was 14 when she stitched this sampler, and we know that she was baptised on Monday, June the 12th in 1820 in Haxby, Yorkshire. Her father was a farmer, and she was the 6th of 9 children born over a 20-year period. We talk about Eliza in the booklet. We actually found out a fair bit about her. She married William Blaine in St Mary's Church in Castlegate in York, and that's right in the centre of York. It's an historical street in York. And their first child was baptised 7 months after their wedding. And Eliza and William went on to have 9 children. We know that William was an innkeeper. You know, he ran a public house, and we know quite a bit about the public house, and it was the Bricklayers Arms in Walmgate. We really did find out quite a lot about the family. William, besides being an innkeeper, he also made grand piano fortes. That's quite an unusual sort of combination. So, you know, he made grand pianos and had a public house. It's a very unusual combination. We know that Elizabeth and William had a great tragedy in their life, in as much as their daughter committed suicide by swallowing poison, and we actually found a newspaper report that went into detail into the inquest, and it's really, really sad, and we talk about it in the booklet, and it really touched us. Eliza lived until she was 72 years of age, so she had a long life. So that's the background information on Eliza. I hope that when I visit York, which is on my bucket list, that I can go to the area where she lived and sort of just soak up the atmosphere. York is a very beautiful cathedral city, very historic. So really that's all I can tell you about Eliza at the moment. She's available to pre-order from the Hands Across the Sea Samplers website and from the 4 sponsoring stores. We really hope that you're going to join in with us. Okay, so let's talk about Harriet Godhard. Now my last video, which was a midweek video, a week Thursday, was with Linda Clues. Now Linda was visiting with me and the booklets came for Harriet and I wanted to release her whilst Linda was with me because Linda stitched this model. Harriet's just such a happy, delightful sampler. She's a skinny sampler and this will look great on anybody's sampler wall. When you have groups of samplers, different shape samplers really highlight the other samplers that surround them. Okay, so Harriet comes in our new format. She's a small sampler, so she is on our A5 sized booklets. Harriet's print run is also, her sampler is also available by PDF, but we have the printed booklet as well. When I released Harriet on that Thursday, within 24 hours, or when I woke up the next morning, we had sold out of the printed booklets. So I immediately ordered another print run, but I went off to London. And when I came back on Thursday evening, the second print run was here. By the time I had filled the orders for Harriet, I had approximately 10 booklets left. So another print run, a third print run has been ordered. These little spiral bound booklets are proving to be very popular. And basically, you know, I think that when you copy a chart, a working copy of a chart, we often end up doing things like this with our charts so that we can hold them or put them on our linen. And these small sizes are very much like, you know, printing off and folding a piece of paper and having a small size to be able to work with. We include a story about Harriet. We know that Harriet was born in 1801 and she is most probably the Harriet that married William Yowell on December the 10th, 1828 in Clewer, Berkshire. And it's a really funny thing, when I went to London last weekend, the M4, the motorway, is closed on a Sunday because they're doing these smart motorways, and the diversion actually took me through Clewer. And you might know Clewer as Windsor. It's where Windsor Castle is built, which is the home of the kings and queens of Great Britain. Queen Elizabeth has now retired from Buckingham Palace and is living in Windsor Castle. We recently saw Windsor Castle on the television for the funeral of the Duke of Edinburgh. So Harriet and her husband grew up and lived in Clewer, and you know, they would have been sort of like almost in the shadow of Windsor Castle. They had 3 children, and William ran the Sun public house and was also a gardener. I really love finding out about the little girls that stitch these samplers. Harriet uses 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 colours, and her stitch count is 87 stitches by 257. She's a tall, skinny sampler. I hope that you will stitch Harriet, because she is such a fun sampler. She's joyous, and I think it's her colours. Her sampler is quite Christmassy, with the stag or reindeer, and the colours and the little Christmas trees. Very, very pretty sampler, and she will not take you long to stitch at all. This is not a big stitch. Okay, so I think that probably covers everything this week. I don't want to go on for too long, because I don't want to sort of start waffling. Okay, so enjoy these samplers, and I hope that everybody will have a good week, and if God is kind, I will be back next week, and we will look at some new antique samplers that have arrived. Stay well, stay safe. Bye-bye.